Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Wake Up Missoula. I'm your host, Scott Ramf, here to usher you in into April 17th. It's the middle of the month. We got the Kyoko Powwow happening this weekend at the Adams Center starting today at 10 a.m., going all weekend long from 10 a.m. to midnight Friday, and then again noon to midnight on Saturday in the Dahlberg Arena at the Adams Center. So you want to go check that out. I have a really condensed show today, so I'm going to get through it as fast as possible. Part of the City Council meeting hosts public hearings and reiterates the community meeting presentation on various topics. And today we have a continued efforts to expand and relocate the Mountain Line base of operations to the outskirts of Missoula with an annexation component to boot. So here is Tara Porcari with Permits and Land Use Senior Planner, spoke a little bit more on this program.
The site is intended for the development of Mountain Line's new Moab facility, which stands for the Maintenance Operations and Administration Base. It will include space for freight operations, some motor vehicle repair, an EV charging hub, and administrative office space, as well as all the supporting infrastructure on site. All of that said, just a reminder, annexation decisions are not based on the development proposal, as that, of course, is never guaranteed, but of course, it's helpful for context. When determining if we want to annex land into our city limits, we have to rely on the city's annexation policy, basically to see if it meets the applicable criteria. The big one is always if the proposed annexation is located within our annexation area A, which includes areas that generally meet our guidelines in the annexation policy and contribute to the logical growth pattern of the city.
All right. A big part of that also has to do with the fact that the city is really looking to utilize, all sorts of things, Missoula to zone this area between essentially the new development off Mullen Road with all of Mary Jane Boulevard, with all those new places, and the airport. So they're trying to transfer all their maintenance facilities. Basically, they have 2 acres kind of smack dab in the middle of kind of like between the area of Scott Street and kind of just below the overpass. And so they're looking to get a bigger space, and they need city utilities and infrastructure and having the city zone and annex this area along with more of those neighborhoods between Mullen and Broadway. They want to be kind of like an I-1 industrial and make it, and it makes sense because being so close to the airport, especially, if you want to start building residential and you're so close to the airport, the noise is going to get kind of crazy. So this is going to help even buffer some of those residential areas that are popping up near the airport. And Tara also talks about the new Unified Development Code and how it's being used.
This will be new to everyone tonight, since I think this is the first annexation going forward under our new Title 22 Unified Development Code, or UDC. Kind of exciting there. So we've got some new review criteria language for the annexation process. It's in section 415.05. The overall process is pretty much the same, but it's stated a bit simpler and, in my opinion, more straightforward, a little bit clearer. It basically outlines the annexation needs to be supported by the annexation policy, and the land use plan should guide zoning. So we've covered that this request aligns with the annexation policy, and that the requested zoning upon annexation is relatable or comparable zoning district under the land use plan and UDC.
Yeah. So, as I refer to my notes, city has worked with Mountain Lines for many years now, especially when it came to create a new fare-free bus system to help support folks in Missoula use alternative transportations. Part of the greater Missoula area multimodal approach for city planning. Jordan Hess, former city mayor and current Mountain Line rep, talks about the process.
This facility will replace our facility that we're in now, which we've been in since 1980. We're on 2.2 acres on the west side, and at that time we had 4 buses and 3 bus routes. We've grown now to 47 vehicles, including 30 full-size buses, and this facility will serve us for the next, several decades to come. It represents a $70 million investment in our community, and over the course of the construction project, we'll provide, or we'll touch 1,000 employees that'll actually work on the site. We'll have 200 tradespeople on the site at any given time during the peak of the project. So it's a major economic investment. Every dollar invested in public transportation results in $5 of economic gain. So it's just a really good investment in our community and in the ability of members of our community to access opportunity.
All right. So yeah, that's just one of many things that the city is moving forward with and getting this going. You know, it's a growing community and problem, and this is looking to expand these services further outward towards the airport and these new communities that are being built to have access to these kind of public transits. Jordan also responds to questions about the future of the current old site of the Mountain Line.
You know, we're looking to sell it, I guess, and there's not a lot of uses for for a bus facility. I mean, there's not a lot of entities that could move in and use it as is. It is pretty well suited for that, and there's an 11,000 gallon underground diesel tank, and there's a bunch of amenities that make it useful to someone who has a small vehicle fleet. So to be determined. We've got a couple of years, but it's available.
Okay. So yeah, that's just one of many things that the city is doing to move the needle forward on their multimodal approach for the city of Missoula. So essentially the site near the train tracks just under Scott Street overpass will be looking to sell, but so far their focus is getting this multi-million-dollar project going, and the city voted to get the ball rolling. Mayor Andrea Davis reflects on the vote for this new annexation, and this is what our mayor had to say.
What seems like a small, minor regulatory item is a significant aspect of the development foundation that needs to happen there by bringing public utilities. And we were talking earlier about how planning really is what makes intentional things flow, and this is one of those things where Mountain Line has planned for a long time. And congratulations to be at this point. We're excited to come celebrate some earth moving and some dirt shoveling here, hopefully, eventually. It would be really great. Thanks so much for all.
And so that was the mayor talking a little bit about that. And as I use this to switch gears on over to committee meetings, the police department and fire department both collaborated on a committee, public safety and health, which is one of the committee meetings where they talk about, police, fire, various other health through the health department. And this one was specifically talking a little bit more about the hiring of a handful of new officers, 6 new officers, and 12 new firefighters within the city of Missoula. So there was a kind of a big transitional deal with the future of Missoula as we're slowly growing. Bit at a time. So with this, Mike Kohler also talks about some of the updates to the sexual and violent assault registration update in the city of Missoula, and this is what he had to say about that.
2019, in which we engaged with the county to have them fulfill the duties of registering and renewing registrations of persons who are in our jurisdiction and subject to mandatory registration for certain sexual and violent offenders. Done through the jail. The jail is well suited with this type of process because they are routinely handling bookings. The efficiencies to the city is that we don't have to provide a staff member to do it. It's a more secure location to do this in a jail rather than in City Hall, and it's proven to be a good relationship and an effective kind of efficient process. There's also some efficiencies outside of just the benefit to the city on this is the benefit to the people who need to register. There's one spot to do it, and the jail is open 24/7. City Hall is not. So,
all right. So that's what he wanted to kind of reiterate is that people who are coming into town who are violent or sex offenders do have to register within a set amount of time, usually 72 hours. But a person new to the area can register at the detention center, which is open 24/7, and we'll continue to register these folks. Housing redevelopment, community planning. This is talking about the overview of how the anti-capiting ordinance has been doing. Dale Bickle spoke about the city's motivation in handling this, a little bit more information on that as well.
Safety in public spaces and not a houselessness solution. Our houseless programs team has been providing updates to council on our work in that space, and I just want to make it clear that this is disconnected. This is about public safety in our public spaces. So on our approach, as part of the process to do this and part of the FY26 budget allocations, we've created a centralized approach to clean up education, enforcement, and the cleanup operations. This is largely led by the Code Enforcement Division of CPDI under Charmel's leadership. Though as I said earlier, it's all hands on deck, and you'll hear from many of our departments here, CPDI, Parks and Rec, Police, the City Attorney's Office, Public Works, and Mobility are all involved in these efforts. This coordinated team the budget has resulted in the addition of permanent staff dedicated to this, dedicated proactive, coordinated cleanups between departments, and also the creation of the vehicle parking program that has been really successful in providing people the ability to shelter in vehicles in the city public right-of-way.
Yeah, and that was a big thing during the pandemic, is the increased amount of people living out of their cars. Economic times are bad, and it's bad for a lot of people, and the city is just trying to figure out what to do. And just so you know, ticketing homeless people was technically ruled out here in the city of Missoula in the 2010s during John Engen's administration here in Missoula, in efforts to work with folks where they are without burdening them with further fine after fine. However, the city did create a vehicle parking program, like you mentioned, which essentially gives people 90 days to live in their car in designated locations. Carmel Owens, Code Compliance Manager, talks more about these new efforts being made in the process. So this is what she had to say.
Okay. So currently there's 65 permitted RVs and vehicles for a total of about 238 occupants. That changes on a daily basis. Today, my team of 4 that you guys have graciously brought forth in this budget, they were out there and they did 8 additional permits today. So that is ever evolving and changing. Throughout 2025 to 26, we had 70 prior RV vehicles that left the program. And I've broken it down a little bit for you so you can understand that the program is having immense success of people rotating out of the program. We had 25 prior occupants that have moved to either a private property housing or an RV park. We've had 19 prior occupants that moved out of the city or state to take other jobs or to further reunite with family. 6 prior occupants were incarcerated or went to rehab or were hospitalized. 8 prior occupants left for health and safety reasons. That's usually because, as my team is working with them, they're having difficulty either staying safe in that environment, or they've chosen to move into some other kind of assisted housing with their family.
And so far, many of the successes of this particular program have to do with the housing sprint, which was a major undertaking which saw less than 50% of the remaining houseless out of Johnson Street have some form of permanent housing related to being reunited with family or put in some kind of housing program. The program worked in curbing complaints from residents who called 911 on homeless during these times, but they have become a coalition of folks dedicated to educating folks within a 72-hour period to remove any encampment that begin to form. Marina Yoshida, park director, spoke about cleanups, and this is what she had to say.
So typically during summer season and shoulder season, we're doing a cleanup every 2 weeks. Winter is a little bit more difficult due to weather constraints, so you'll see fewer of those happening during the winter. If you look at the slide, the data here shown is for a 6-month period, July to December of last year, where we had 10 cleanups, averaging 13 employees per cleanup. The bigger the group of people out on the field doing the cleanup, the faster and easier it is. And we've averaged 38 hours, accumulating or collecting about 36,000 pounds of debris. And so some of the things we've noticed since the ordinance is that there's a notable decrease in camping within city parks. We think this is the ordinance, and also we've partnered with Black Knight Security, and they patrol the parks every night, and they are very helpful in educating people about the ordinance and our camping laws and getting people moving along.
All right, and so yeah, the Black Knight has been a big part of the city of Missoula as they hope to alleviate some of the extra duties from the police officers. Originally, Parks and Rec had spent roughly $50,000 a month on cleanups, and at the height of the cleanups during the height of the pandemic and homelessness and everything all kind of happening all at once, Rivers and redistributed folks out of parks And, you know, the whole thing is that they just moved somewhere else. And so far they've handed out less than 200 citations in the city property and city parks, which are different, but fall into the same category as police give a warning and return to the location after some time to check on compliance, usually the 72-hour stint. Christian Jordan, who has been a critic of the city's approach, she's on council, and she asked about the folks and their belongings as the past cleanups tend to remove people's personal properties. And Chief Collier talks a little bit more about their experiences and after people are asked to leave or after the cleanups have done, what they do with people's stuff and their personal properties.
The primary responsibility that the MPD has at the cleanup sites is safety and security and making sure that there's not some risk to the staff that's out there doing it or a risk to the people that are at the sites. On top of that, if the teams that are doing the cleanups come across items that they recognize that are either financially of value, easy example is a modern day cell phone is worth $1,000 or so, right? Or something that's of personal value like an ID card, a social security card, some type of a benefits card, whatever. We provide secure storage for that is what we call safekeepings. It's not evidence, but it's in safekeeping until the person can return and collect it. If the person is taken into custody for whatever reason, they're allowed a little bit of stuff into the jail, you know, small bags and whatnot can go into the jail. If it's something larger than that, we have an outside storage that we can use for that is not in our, what we call safekeeping, and that would be used for things like packs and whatnot that are too big that the jail won't accept, but we put them in like a shed and just hold them until the person's released and able to come back and get them.
All right, so yeah, that's kind of what they're doing, and a part of that, Mike also mentions that you know, the library offers day storage for folks, but anything long-term is not priority of the city of Missoula, as mentioned by city and staff, which opens the door for more public comments, as many folks in the community wanted a more holistic approach rather than this ordinance. And John Rhodes, a resident with Catalyst, Montana, spoke a little bit more on this.
The vast majority of citations from 1260 came from within a 15-minute walk of the Poverello or from J Street. These were people trying to access services that were then cited and sent to court. This policy is actively pushing people away from the services they need. And we heard it from Parks as well, that they're being pushed out to the outside of town rather than being able to go to the shelter, rather than being able to go to our continuum of care. And that was mentioned repeatedly in this room. Service providers, unhoused neighbors, community members told this body again and again that 1260 would push people away from services and would criminalize being poor and without shelter. And that is exactly what we've seen. There is no upside to this. We are in a housing crisis. Montana has some of the fastest rising rents in the nation. And no one's coming to save us. The feds aren't coming to save us. They're trying to cut all the continuum of care funding. The state's not going to save us. Their budget's running out. The only people that can save us is Missoula. And our unhoused neighbors have been clear about this. They want the services originally promised in 1260. They don't want their belongings to be swept. They don't. You talk to people, they're losing their wedding rings from being swept. This isn't right. People want a positive place to go. They want to be able to rest in security and safety. They want to be able to access the services they should be able to access without being ticketed or sent to court. We do not need to criminalize poverty. We do not need to sweep people away from services. We need to repeal 1260.
All right. So, yep, that's a big part of this, as well as that there's always been a couple of the folks that have been speaking adamantly about that, and Sage Bennett from Forward Montana has spoken multiple times in the past who have advocated for supporting the homeless rather than criminalizing them, and this is what she had to say.
And in the ways in which it criminalizes poverty in our community is absurd. If you are not willing to repeal this ordinance, then I strongly encourage you to start discussing the specifics of it. All of the points that Kristen Jordan brought up about the resources that the city promised they would provide for individuals, including a map of where individuals can safely camp within this ordinance, has not been provided for individuals. There are so many elements of it that are so frustrating. I would consider, weather constraints. If we're gonna sweep people and take away all of their property, could we not do that during the winter? Could we remove the fines? That is, again, ridiculous and has been told to you by many people in many different professions of how ineffective that is. When you're fining a person who is trying to obtain housing, how are they supposed to get any closer to obtaining housing if they continuously are having to pay these fines?
All right, so that's pretty, that's pretty clear when it comes to a lot of the sentiments of folks that are in support of helping people get out of poverty. Most of the people who are in support of homeless folks are they themselves working really hard to prevent themselves from getting into poverty in some form, because frankly, young people, the cost of living in Missoula is getting out of control. Rents are going up. Trailer parks are being bought. Property managements are basically becoming algorithms where you don't even have people to talk to. So yeah, it's an interesting thing. There's a lot of things happening in the world today, and a part of the criminalization of homelessness is not helping anyone. I mean, I am not for this ordinance because I know for a fact that Mayor John Engen basically repealed these kind of ordinances because they felt as though that print out tickets to folks who are just like, I'm already in the red. I'm already like thousands upon thousands of dollars in debt through legal fees, everything related to everything, medical fees. That's a big part of like people get into poverty is because the medical fees are just ridiculous. It's just a lot of things going on, and it's just something that we can't really solve because the state's not going to do anything, like John mentioned, and the federal government have curved back so many different things, including hearing some reports that even some professional medical facilities are not taking Montana's Medicaid now. So there's a lot of weird things happening out there, and it's not helping anyone just to give them a ticket for simply existing longer in a location than they should be. So think about that moving forward. And honestly, I think the whole idea is like what is the scale we should be really thinking about is that should we really be worried about homeless people? Should we be helping them, or should we be listening to the people who complain about them kind of being there and making them uncomfortable? So that's one of the things they should really be thinking about and taking to heart, because I don't blame you. Sometimes you walk down the street and then some people are just kind of like, oh, that person looks rough, and you don't want to talk to them. It happens. I get it. But, that's kind of how I want to wrap up this meeting. I'm kind of going on this little rant, but I think it's kind of important to note that it kind of feels like we're going backwards in these kind of policies instead of forward. But for the most part, I really like what the city is doing with the housing sprint, which was kind of like a Frankenstein's monster grew from the housing sprint for veterans, and now those things are kind of being a staple. And if you've been reading some of the articles in the news recently, is that a lot of veteran programs that are being pushed forward are roadmaps to help the rest of the homeless folks who are out there who are not fortunate enough to be ex-veterans. So that's the thing. I just kind of want to end it there. I don't really have a strong ending, but I'm going to throw it over to some new programs that are airing on MCAT that are like vast. We have a whole bunch of new programs that are airing on MCAT, and I'm going to show it to you right now, and I'm going to come back. We're going to talk about some movies and such.
In the last days of the transition between the John Tyler and James Polk administrations, the Republic of Texas, now calling themselves a third name change, now it's permanently just simply Texans, appeal for admission subject to Texas ratification by convention to the American Union. The deal is approved by Congress, and Tyler and Polk willingly inherits the deal. In March 1845, Mexico breaks relations with the U.S. over a potential annexation. In July 1845, a Texas convention ratifies annexation, and in December 1845, Texas is admitted as the 28th state of the Union. In March 1846, the U.S. Army under General Zachary Taylor moves into Texas and up to the Rio Grande, ostensibly to defend the new U.S. territory.
Everybody has somebody in their family, maybe through sports, maybe through a stroke, or maybe a surgery. I mean, there's so many ways that you can acquire a brain injury. And everybody goes, I got my cousin and she, blah, blah. Yeah. So that's part of the prevention. And really, what our goal is to improve the quality of life of people who have had injuries, because it's one of those things that you could address it like many things at a very clinical level, but sometimes Tyler and I just like to sit around and talk about things that are kind of challenging.
We eliminated a process that worked for 50 years, that was very extensive, open, transparent, and at least if they didn't choose the most experienced, you saw what all the experiences were of all the people who wanted to be the judge at that time for that district. In 2021, we got rid of that. We said, no way, we're going to do a different process. And now the governor was going to directly fill those positions. The governor is now directly filling those positions. Now, he said in 2021, after being sued, that he would appoint well-qualified judges who will protect and uphold the Constitution and who will interpret the laws, not make them from the bench. I'm committed to appointing judges transparently, providing for robust public input, and ensuring judges have a diversity of legal background and subject matter expertise. That's sort of what the Judicial Nominating Committee would do. Well, I'm here to tell you, I sat on the judicial for the first person he appointed. He had handpicked the 12 people who were going to do the interviews. He handpicked them. One of them quit right away when they found out it was going to be a totally secret process. The other 11, there was only 2 judges running. That group of handpicked people chose Judge A 10-1 over Judge B. The governor appointed Judge B.
We have occasionally been flooded with so much material that it's been more than we can handle.
Yeah.
Which is a good kind of problem to have.
No kidding. And the kinds of things that people are watching, the kinds of things that you would like to accept. Do you want to tell people about that?
Well, we try to keep it really strictly to art, craft-related, music-related materials. Stuff that is ancillary, empty containers, interesting doodads and whatnot, we kind of try to shy against, where our philosophy is to be as little waste as possible.
Like that's the whole point, is like, what's that little thing that you could do yourself, but you could do a little bit faster with a few extra hands? And that's exactly kind of at the core of what the big event is being able to just help our neighbors.
And deadlines. I work so good on deadlines. I may show up very short to recording time, but I'm very good on a deadline. So what I wanted to ask now is about what hosts should know. What do neighbors need to provide if they do sign up?
Yeah.
And do they need tools, materials, and how many volunteers do you typically send out?
Yeah, so if following the Texas A&M model, which is what we're kind of doing for our first year, we'll probably change things and make it our own as the years go on. But ideally, we're sending groups of like 2 to 6 students, and that's going to be typical for like a typical home project. Some of our partners, like Free Cycles, you know, Bob can take up to 100 people. They always need help in the boneyard out there, and so it really depends on what the scope of the project is. And as far as the tools go, it makes things a lot easier if the tools are provided on site, especially if we're like painting or doing things like that. It'd be great for those things to be provided, but you know, it takes all kinds, and so we're open to working with people. We've purchased some tools and things that we know we're going to use from year to year, and so as we continue to grow this event, I'm sure our own tool library will grow as well, because this is something that we are hopeful to start and establish as an annual tradition that our community starts to look forward to as well. And
the highlight for me was probably selling a lot of art, and with all the money we made, I can now buy new art supplies and to make my art better. We love the ZAC, and I look forward to attending another summer camp. Yeah.
My name is April Whirl. I'm a narrative painter based here in Missoula. And the ZAC is a really special place to me because it's where I had some of my first art exhibited in Missoula after graduating from the university here. And then in 2020, I was part of the BIPOC mural series in the alleyway behind the ZAC, and that really pushed my work into like the Montana scene. And I had my first solo exhibition at the Holder Museum from that. The ZAC is a really special place to me, and I'm excited to continue to be a part of it.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Let's talk about some movies that are coming out this weekend. I also have a very special short for you guys, not to be confused with my typical dubbing stuff, because I'm not going to be doing it for at least another week or two, as I'm kind of showing some of the fun videos that the kids have made over last week's Spring Flicks Spring Break Camp. So let's kick things off with a new movie that's coming out this weekend, Bus Boys. You know those old kind of movies where you're kind of bringing back old-time comedies and whatnot? You know, there have been a couple comedies here and there that come on streaming and whatnot, but in a world where life is stranger than fiction comes a simple comedy about a couple of rascals thinking they want to become waiters. Will make their lives even better, but they have to become busboys first, hence the title, Bus Boys. Enjoy a series of mishaps, down-on-the-luck comedic effect duos. We have a comedian and reality star Theo Vaughn at the beginning of the movie, with veteran comedic actor David Spade in his Ken Burns wig era. Watch as the two accomplish the very thing that requires some kind of personality to work in waiting and the food business. All right, then we got Normal. This Midwest town in the middle of winter where nothing can go wrong, in a town called Normal, which the lead, Bob Odenkirk, does his lone cop against a tight-knit community of murderers probably hell-bent on keeping their status quo at all costs. Kind of like Hot Fuzz, but Midwestern. Something tells me that the sheriff in the town arrests the wrong guy, and the town tells him to blink, and he uses his Mr. Nobody powers to essentially entertain those Charles Bronson boomer types, where the old man versus the bad guys. Then we got Lee Cronin's The Mummy. Not The Mummy you think with Brendan Fraser. This is more like one of those kind of horror films where it's just like, you know, you close the mirror and the monster's behind you. This is the horror side and the old school tales of everything like that. Hey, I remember the time when Albert and Costello met the mummy and just a wrapped guy in a bunch of bandages slowly chasing them. And that's kind of what it is. It's like, oh, the mummy, it's scary, ooh, but it doesn't actually really do anything. But in this movie, I'm assuming is probably more or less like ghosts and mummies and bodies and stuff like that. A little mixture of like poltergeist thrown in with some, you know, zombie type stuff because, you know, it's the mummy. And so you got to have all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's what you can expect. Which is, I don't even know, kind of nothing. Mother Mary. So this one isn't about Mary Magdalene. Sorry, guys. This is more or less a sexual thriller about a kind of like a pop star comeback. Lady Gaga going back and forth in a fast-paced hardline world of pop stardom, dealing with, I guess it's a ghost story, ghost of pop star past, but you know, she's basically a Lady Gaga coded who's falling out with her costume designer, only to run back to them for one last performance to prove she's not a hack and become the world's best pop star in a performance of a lifetime. Unless her life is cut short from stupid, sexy, beautiful people. But anyways, that's what you can expect from this. It seems to be a pretty ongoing thing because that's what they do with Smile 2, is about a pop star who's supposed to smile on stage, but then part of this is that smiling is the evil entity that's chasing her down and making her crazy, and then in the end, so I don't know. Mother Mary, I thought it was just like one of those like old pop stars trying to reclaim their glory, but it also happens to be a horror element to it as well. So up next, we have special short films from those wacky spring breakers. This one is called Bookmageddon.
Somebody died, and he was being arrogant. That's all I gotta say. And that gives you no right to assault him. We didn't assault him. He was crying on purpose. Yeah. He wanted to cry and fake it. He was faking it. Yeah, he was faking it. He was just like, yeah, he was
Seeing
faking
a body is a traumatic experience.
Your face is a traumatic experience. I'm leaving. I'm leaving too.
I am this close to firing both of you.
What if the book did it? You were insane. It was obviously a person. No, a book wouldn't just jump off its shelf and land on a person. I guess that's true. Books can't come alive. Yeah, that's right. Did you hear? There's no fingerprints, so it's very strange. I know, right? You know what? And also, I still think that guy who was crying, who was the witness. Yes, the witness. Still, I think is our main suspect. He was acting so strange. I think he's probably our main suspect for now. Shouldn't we be working instead of playing? Yeah, I think we should be going now. I understand what you gotta be something. Wow, isn't that him? Is he dead? We need to alert the chief of police. Let's go. But what? Our suspect is dead. Does that mean it might have been there is a book on the face like the last person who died. This is weird. Our suspect is dead. Sleep? Oh wow. Wait. I got worried that the suspect is dead. There was a book on his face. You're chasing him. He was found in the book. It's like Night at the Museum. They come alive at night. That's ridiculous. He died during the day. Can't believe the chief doesn't believe that. I know, right? What do I do? Get it off me!
I always knew reading was evil.
Do you believe us now?
Yeah, I'm a visual learner, so.
Well, Chief, you saved us! Yes, thank you so much.
No problem.
Hello, my name is Ryan Smith, and I am here to talk about the story of books attacking and killing people in a local library. Here I'm going to be questioning a chief of police about the incident. What do you have to say about the books? What was the genre most likely to attack?
Well, right now we think that it may be involved in some Halloween type of incident, but if you see the book, do not approach, immediately call the police. Don't approach, it's on for 2 murders right now.
All right, should we be scared of all books or just this Halloween book?
Just that Halloween book. If you see a book moving, that's most likely it.
All right, thank you. Sure. All right, next we're going to be interviewing one of the officers who is in the case as well. What was it like being chased by a book?
Well, I don't know. Well, it was really scary. It started eating my foot at one point.
All right, and I'll be interviewing you as well. Did there kind of be a similarity between the victims of the book at all?
Well, the victims were looking at the books and kind of near books when that happened.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, well, that's all we've got today on Channel 67 News. Thank you for tuning in. I'm here to interview a book after the incident with certain books murdering people in a public library, but some books feel discriminated against. So I'm here with Cotton Ball Colin, the book, to see how he feels about this situation.
Well, I think it's like you can't judge a book by its cover. It's kind of ridiculous that these folks are just indiscriminately attacking us poor books. We're just here to help people learn to read.
I see. And what do you think about the books that do attack people, though?
Well, I just think that they need to be thrown in jail. Anybody who attacks anyone should just be thrown in jail. It's just the way it is.
Can you describe book jail for me, please?
Well, it's like being in a shelf and then also a cardboard box.
Oh, very interesting. I never knew this. Thank you for sharing, Conval Call.
Yeah, we call that being crated.
Oh, wow. Well, that's all for today on this story on Channel 67. Goodbye.
These are our count of how many books have been moved so far. A talking book that was interviewed on TV, that one who tries to read a foot, and the one that was stolen.
All right, welcome back. Let's talk about some news that are happening in and around the world today. Let's see, what do I have? Okay. Let's jump on over to some news. Bonner Milltown Community Council met with citizens this last Monday to express outrage over the new proposed data center. Part of this meeting invited staffers from the county to tasked with working with the Australian AI company looking to set up shop in the former Bonner Milltown site. Crambu is hoping to transfer one of the old mill sites because they have over 20 different companies that are working out of the old former sawmill site in Bonner with sustainable environmental footprint and to bring more jobs to Bonner. However, during the meeting, the amount of jobs are under the temporary construction phase as AI centers don't require large job creation, with Mills Property Management saying about 15 permanent jobs would be available for this particular center. The data center needs to comply with Missoula County zoning, waste, noise, including vibrations and environmental regulations before moving forward, all of which are concerns of the public as well. Bonner has a history of dealing with the former Bitcoin mining operation where the fans were humming at a tone which caused some mental anguish and sleep deprivation for a lot of people in the community, prompting the county to outright ban certain frequencies, and these kind of Bitcoin mining operation kind of fizzled out as a result. County planner Jenny Dixon said that the county made specific changes after the former cryptocurrency mine in the area drew complaints. This has been a concern as more stories follow the creation of various AI companies across the U.S. as energy rates, noise issues, and various impacts to local communities have left a bad taste in many folks' mouths. When you look at a face value, essentially are creating the means to kill a majority of white-collar jobs that involve use of computers. Think about chatting with Amazon Help Chat with the use of AI to help maximize your shopping experience without calling a toll-free number. And heck, even calling toll-free numbers also have AI voices are becoming more common. Have you ever been to the Broadway Taco Bell? Their drive-thru is AI, and you just get your food there that way. Despite the promising AI will remove the need for those kinds of grunt jobs that AI could replace, the lingering question of human importance is in the new era is on the back burner to a new tech looking to expedite the process to get the ultimate goal of artificial general intelligence, not to be confused with AI, which is the difference comes from being original and not rehashing the prompts that the humans have programmed into it. Software engineering has been the easy go-to for many professions with Google, Amazon, and many heavy hitters in big tech, which essentially has removed many of those jobs, making them obsolete. The costs tend to be higher, use of power, and some people concerned about creating heat islands, which also increase temperatures within a proximity of the site in question. Of course, this big meeting, where it's the zoning or the county equivalent of their own zoning board, will be meeting on June 3rd at the County Commissioner's office in the Sophie Marie Room at the courthouse at 6 p.m. on June 3rd. The board will review and decide if the company comes into compliance with the county zoning regulations. And as we turn our focus to Ohio, a meeting also spoke about AI data centers, and meeting provided insight from an ex-engineer, software engineer that went viral, has convinced many communities to take the action on banning AI. And so I'm going to actually bring it up and see if I can show it to you guys.
For the last decade and a half, I have been in service of learning burgeoning technology. In my last job, I was the digital artist they trusted to do that kind of work. I was the one feeding Midjourney prompts to create the perfect commercial. training the very machine that would eventually replace me, as 3 months later, they would lay me off. I didn't just watch it happen, I was holding the tools when the tools were turned on me. I want to stress, I don't stand here as an enemy of progress. The thing is, when I look at the data center proposal, I don't see progress. I see a gamble where the big tech companies get the gold while Portage County foots the bill. We're told that we have to accept this because we need big employers. We're told that if we don't say yes, we're driving away the future. But that's a false choice. A big employer who uses the water of 50,000 people, which by the way is a combination of both Kent and Ravenna, only hires about 10 people is not an employer. They are an extraction. We are being asked to fund a 21st century luxury with a 19th century resource heist. We are being asked to sacrifice the life of our city so a $1 trillion company can save a fraction of a cent on its margins. We're being asked to drain our reservoirs so a chatbot can write a poem or so our sheriff can generate a picture of himself standing next to Bigfoot. Which, by the way, of course, he made himself look taller. I am not a cynic when it comes to technology. I am a believer in community. I believe that a drop of clean water for a Ravenna child is worth more than 1 billion AI-generated images. For the last
All right. So then you got a kind of an idea of that guy speaking at that meeting, and essentially it was a 5-minute long speech by Ravenna resident, Ravenna County in Ohio, Will Hollingsworth, is shown passionately making a case against the new AI center in his community. The video, he spoke about the board, about the dangers and the game these companies are playing in creating impacts to the environment as dangerous to the environment being a major issue being ignored. He also mentioned that we are being asked to sacrifice the lifeblood of our city so a $1 trillion company can save a fraction on a cent of margin, as they mentioned in there. Everything came down to regulation, and as a result, state leaders are looking to use constitutional initiatives to outright ban AI centers. They've been speaking about this since March in Ohio, and according to statenews.org, local Ohio group turned in a petition to the Ohio Attorney General office banning a specific class of data centers. The data centers won't be able to use more than 25 megawatts, says Danielle Kenholt, one of the group that calls itself Adams County for Responsible Development, also quoted in saying, really, the data centers, we just don't want the mega AI data centers. Ohio has around 200 data centers, and a report released by the Ohio Chamber of Commerce said that they are responsible for more than 95,000 jobs as of 2024. But critics, including the Ohio Consumer Council, said that they created few permanent jobs because most of the jobs are in construction of those data centers. A nice thing about constitutional initiatives is that they are available in a handful, I would say more than half of the states in the United States, which allows the people to expedite the process without going to their leadership of the state and put it on the ballot, bypassing the leadership who have been facilitating much of the AI craze, much of like how the Montana plan aims to curb dark money spending in Montana. And speaking of the Montana plan, that's another constitutional initiative in the state of Montana to help curb dark spending of money. So the whole point is that if you wanted to spend money, you actually have to have an incorporated organization in the state rather than having outside money coming into Montana. So essentially you have to have a funded political action committee created within the state rather than just kind of outside carpet begging money kind of things to get your election forwarded. So one of the things is, since we're talking about the elections and stuff like that, is that University of Montana has named Boise interim president Jeremiah Shin as the role of the president of our University of Montana here in Missoula. And starting July 1st, Shin will oversee the immediate operations of college administration and roles going into the 2026-2027 school year. July 1st tends to be the fiscal year of most schools and institutes around. Seth Bodnar, former president, has put in a bid for Steve Daines' Senate seat for the U.S. as an independent. Hold on, am I? Okay, I'm just wondering, I'm getting some feedback, but he will be, so the whole idea is that the new president of the university will be paid a salary of $467,197, which reflects a 2.5% increase over the current president's salary, including the state employee pay plan based on the legislature last year, according to the commissioner's office. This will also include a housing stipend, but will not be used since the university was unable to sell their $2.9 million president mansion last year. Yeah, and then since we're on the topic topic of former President Seth Bodnar. We'll talk about the debate that occurred this week with candidates of various locations from East, Western, and the Senate races. All these primaries that are happening, the Democrats are running their respective candidates as Bodnar chose to run as an independent route to get away from the stigma of both parties. Eastern District was an uphill battle with Democratic candidates Brian Miller, Sam Lux, and Jonathan Windyboy, who just repealed his efforts to run after allegations of sexual assault came about just recently this week. Montana's Western Congressional District race is open with Republican U.S. Representative Ryan Zinke announcing his retirement earlier this year. It has also become heated with Democrat Russ Cleveland and Ryan Boose attacking Sam Forstag over data centers and political action committee monies. Sam has also been a favorite among many progressive-leaning Democrats looking to get support from the squad, a la Bernie and AOC, speaking at their Stop Oligarchy tour last year in Missoula. The other candidates, Cleveland and Boose, are more traditional middle-left Democrats looking to take advantage of the wavering support behind Trump and his GOP supporters on the fence with Iran. Many Dems had it easy to criticize the current administration as midterm elections favor the opposing party, and nothing breaks records for better or worse than Donald J. Trump. And speaking of our fearless leader, while a blockade started this week, tensions to get the trade route, the Strait of Hormuz open, is paramount to global gas prices. Europe says that they're about 6 weeks away from running out of jet fuel. And I cannot say this may or may not happen, as things are fluid, and this war is either going to be the beginning of World War III when we look back, or edging towards the fall of American influence in the world. Every country with or against America agrees that talks are important. Whether the U.S. will concede something is unsure, but the cards are stacked in Iran's favor. Simply blocking the trade route. I mean, Strait of Hormuz has kind of peacefully been able to trade easily. Iran could easily just say, oh, we're going to boom, bomb. And that basically makes them a major player of them not bombing. So that's a big thing about that. And then control of the oil, and you control the means of transportation, hence control of transporting your food, medicines, everything like that, because a big part of the export has to do with helium. And what's the important part of helium? Helium is actually used to help mitigate the cleaning of MRI machines, the CAT scans, and part of this is to reduce friction with the device as the magnets turn and scan you properly. And if you can mitigate friction, and helium is a finite resource, which means once it's gone, it's gone. It's just the way it is. But the American blockade isn't something that will accomplish much of anything, but add another layer of difficulty for shipments to get through. And as of the week, over 70% of farmers across the nation also claim that fertilizer has become too expensive. Even with the situation in Iran pushing prices higher, the sharp increase in fertilizer prices from 2020 is catching attention in Washington. Not only did President Trump take to social media warning of price gouging, but Agricultural Secretary Brooke Rollins also posted on X Monday, specifically expressing frustration over Mosaic's response to farmers. And the Ag Web reported that Corn Mosaic Company announced Thursday it will be idle 2 phosphate facilities in Brazil as part of a broader effort to cut costs and shift capital. Mosaic experts idling on the facilities to reduce the annual phosphate production by approximately 1 million tons. CEO Bruce Bodine says that decision reflects what he calls a disciplined focus on long-term returns. Just so you know, these are like the factory farms kind of organizations, big corn. Iran is at the center of all this, with the stakes high as roughly 1/3 of global fertilizer shipments move through the strait, and disruption is already sending prices higher, up more than 40% compared to a year ago. With these prices even worse and the scarcity of fertilizer, so we have fuel, we got fertilizer, so you got two major things that are going to impact your food. So you got transportation, and then you got the fertilizer, and so a lot of people have been cutting corners. And then how it applies to Montana is a big deal too, because we need that kind of high enriched fertilizer to even grow anything, with only irrigation to rely on in the state of Montana, because we can't rely on rain or heck even the river basins and the snowpack, because the snowpack has been abysmal this year. I mean, we get more details of the strait. China has made deals with the U.S. to suspend arms sales with Iran in an attempt to get the U.S. ships to stop blockade. Pakistan is also one of the major major players and facilitating talks between the U.S. and Iran, as Iran leadership is hiding. And after two major talks left many dead in the U.S.-Israel-related bombings, Iran is really skeptical about being able to be forefront and having their main leadership show up for these negotiations. So there's talks happening, but whether or not they're going to end in one way or the other. But also one of the things that happened, heck, even the last weekend, was that 21-hour talk with J.D. Vance, who's been bouncing around all over the Europe and east side of the world, try to like curb the election in Hungary, which lost terribly. Almost like 90 out of the 112 seats went against the former Prime Minister of Hungary. So that's one of the things happening, is that they're kind of going on it kind of really feels like he's going on a embarrassment tour in a lot of ways. So, that's as we talk a little bit more about this, part of the restart of the talks in Tehran, Army Chief of Tehran with Field Marshal Azim Munir has landed in Iran as part of the delegation from Pakistan to hold high-level talks on resumption of talks between Iran and the U.S. A lot of the things that Trump is saying is very counter to what's actually happening. It's kind of hard to go on what he's saying. He says that Iran is not going to do any nuclear whatsoever, because that seems to be the big stick that the U.S. is all about, no uranium enrichment whatsoever. That's the main goal. But this just so happens to be a major move for the countries beginning to take the lead on negotiations as the U.S. throws its weight around, with our president giving constant counter information. Well, this week, new efforts by Trump to get rid of Jerome Powell, the Fed chair. He's the one that sets the rates in the midst of raising inflation rates to combat these delays and disruption of shipments. Powell has the option to remain in the Fed's government board until 2028, and he says he will not step it down until the Justice Department resolves its probe of cost overruns at the Fed's headquarters renovation project. As of now, the Fed inflation rate went from 3.5 to 13.75 as of April 15th this week. The federal government is infighting. Montana is looking to revitalize logging in the Thompson Falls areas. And on April 10th, Lolo Forest Supervisor Benjamin Johnson issued a decision as approved the Wilkes Cherry Project, which includes more than 20,000 acres of logging and burning within a 75,000 acre immediate south of Thompson Falls between Clark Fork River and Interstate 90. According to Missoula Current, Laura Lindquist, the 15-year project known as the Wilkes Cherry Project, commercial logging will occur on more than 6,200 acres, 62% of which will be regeneration cuts, where the Forest Service eliminates all but a few trees. This is an effort to kickstart logging, but also figure out ways to help reduce the fuel that would be causing for the upcoming fire season. Logging in Montana is roughly a 40 to 60 year endeavor, which requires long waits for many of the trees in Montana to grow based on our low precipitation and the needs for snowpack, which our basins are weak, like I mentioned. So a lot of things happen, and we're in the middle of the U.S. with rivers and snowpack to support various communities and irrigation for farmers. Very little reliance on rain, and Montana has been declaring states of emergency based on drought, and 21 out of the last 22 years have been some form of drought declarations of emergency in the state of Montana. Those are all based on farm studies as opposed to the trees that just exist on their own. So tree farms exist, but not on the scale necessity to facilitate sustainable logging, which is why a lot of those tree farms in those higher precipitation areas from the east of the east of the Mississippi, mind you, and then of course from Washington to Portland, which actually have some really robust tree farms happening currently. So, just something to think about. That's pretty much going to wrap up my show for you guys. No more news. There's always more news, but that's the news I'm going to be mentioning. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. And for Wake Up Missoula, I'm Scott Ramp. I hope you guys have a good weekend.